Now, here we have something that I've been wanting to show off for a while. This is the sword that started my collection. For those of you who don't know, this is a 1796 Heavy Cavalry Sword. This is the sword that was carried by the British Heavy Cavalry from 1796 all the way up until 1821. And this was the sword which was primarily carried by Richard Sharp in Bernard Cornwell's Sharp series. So I'm going to also use this sword to show you the anatomy of the sword, but I'll just give you a little bit of a backstory on the 1796 pattern. So the first formalized pattern that the British Army held was the 1788, and it was found to be a brilliant sword, a bit heavy but brilliant. However, the light cavalry sword of the same pattern year, 1788 pattern sword, which I've shown before on the channel, was found to be too long and too heavy. So General Jean Marchand went to redo the light cavalry sword, and he came up with the 1796 light cavalry model, which I will do a video on later on. But at the same time, the army asked, well, whilst we're doing the light cavalry sword, what about the heavy cavalry sword for all of our heavy cavalry units, like dragoons and everything like that? So he looked at the Austrians and the Hungarians to what they were using, and the Austrians were using the 1769 Pallasch. And this is basically a carbon copy. So Jean Le Marchand, with a little bit of time restrictions on his side, just basically copied and pasted that. Now, where this one is missing pieces because it has been somewhat field stripped to its current configuration. It would have had a hatchet point. This one has a spear point. It would have langettes, and I will bring the blade closer and I'll show you all these different pieces. So, made famous by Sharp, great descriptions of the blade in the book series Sharp. This one was made by Dawes of Birmingham, and you can kind of just barely see it there. Dawes, and you can see the B-I-M, or B-I-R-M. So, anatomy of the sword. You have your point, your fuller, your spine, your blade. This point, as I said, would be a hatchet point, more like a hatchet's tip or a tanto point. Now, the guard. Disc guard, as you can see, this side is a bit wider than this side. There would have been langettes here. As I said, yeah, the disc guard here is not symmetrical because it's been ground down on one side. Your grip. This grip is a replacement. And your D pommel. Now, this sword is quite iconic. It's the heaviest sword or pattern of sword used by the British Army. Then they went towards more universal patterns. But this was the sword. This is actually the type of sword that was used by Ensign Urirt when he broke the French at Waterloo and captured an eagle. And there's a great account by him of him capturing that eagle. So, a beautiful piece of work. When I started, I had read Sharp. I wanted to collect something like this, and I decided this was going to be my end game, and I got it very early on. I got it within my first 2 years of collecting. It was sold in auction as an old sword. I knew exactly what it was, and I got it for the princely sum of 150 quid. For me, this sword was the one. It was described in books. It was used by the heavy cavalry. I'm a big tall man myself, so this would have been the be-all and end-all. But hard to get. Even in this condition, they're hard to get. This would be a fairly poor condition one, but still, they are amazing. Just for length and prowess, they're heavy. They're a brutal weapon. They are a brutal weapon. But again, much used in. They also say that Captain Jack Aubrey had some variation of this. If you read the Aubrey Maturin book series, he had a version of this, as they describe it, as a heavy cavalry sword of the new pattern. So, two fictional great characters of British Napoleonic history carried a sword like this, both big men. And I'm sure many other tales could be told about this sword. Now, as I said, 1821, the pattern was amended and changed to the 1823, or 21 that I also have. But yeah, this one was the last pure heavy cavalry sword before it became more of a universal sword. So, again, I'm going to start trying to show off a few more of my swords in collection. But if you like this sort of content, please remember to like, follow, and subscribe. And thank you very much.